Welcome you back to the Patrick Netherton Show right here on 1130 The Tiger. He's Rogers. I'm Patrick. Very pleased to have you with us. And as always, we love being joined by the man who wrote the definitive book on Drew Brees and Sean Payton. He is Jeff Duncan of The Athletic in New Orleans. Now doing a little work up in our neck of the woods. We'll get to that here in just a second. First of all, Jeff, how the heck are you, man?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Patrick?
I'm good. We're, another unfortunate exit from the playoffs for the New Orleans Saints. But I guess it's to the team that's going to the Super Bowl. I don't know. What do you make of that, Jeff? Just another disappointing ending to a season for a Saints team that looked like they could have been Super Bowl bound?
Yeah, I think disappointing is the perfect word. I mean, they just did not play well enough to advance, and it was almost a carbon copy of some of their losses in previous years. The offense seemed to sputter, made mistakes, self-inflicted wounds, never really felt like they were in control of that game, even though they had a chance there, I think, to take a 2-score lead. And it just wasn't meant to be. I think they got outplayed by Tampa. I think Tampa Bay clearly was playing better than them at the end of the season, as it's shown, as they've gone on the road and won 3 games. And, we hear all the time about teams wanting to peak and ascend at the right time, and certainly Tampa Bay's done that, and the Saints were their victims. I mean, they just didn't play well enough that day.
Well, and you know where I'm going, Jeff, because it seems like every time we talk, I do bring this up. Now we find out that Drew Brees actually was playing with a torn rotator cuff. At one point we saw he had that flex tape on his shoulder. Kind of everyone noticed that, but he's good enough to beat almost every team. But when you face a team like Tampa, who was able to jam the receivers, Michael Thomas isn't healthy enough to get open on those underneath routes. And so they're jamming the receivers, just basically daring the Saints to try to throw deep, and they don't have the ability to do that with Drew. Unfortunately, it seems like they keep running into this in the playoffs. Minnesota did the same thing. They played 3 safeties down. Tampa did it with their corners and their linebackers covering. It just is interesting to me that we talked about Drew's arm strength and how he kind of has overcome it, but at the same time, when you get the exact wrong matchup in the playoffs defensively, it is a huge, huge obstacle.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we don't know exactly how much that restricted or limited Brees. I mean, that report came actually from his wife, Brittany. Mm-hmm. Don't really know, the degree of a tear. It could be, there's certainly different degrees. But I think it's fair to say that Drew Brees was not throwing the ball with the same velocity and, strength, arm strength that he had when he started the season. And I think defenses knew that, and so it certainly made things much more difficult, more challenging for Sean Payton and the offensive staff to attack defenses when they really didn't have much of a downfield threat. And they manufactured a lot of offense with those limitations, and it eventually caught up to them.
Yeah, and then you lose Deontay Harris, and that basically there's your deep threat, at least your threat of a deep ball. Goes away when he goes out. All right, so let's fast forward now to the future. Saints are way over the cap. Cap's coming down, so they're going to be even more over the cap. We know Brees is likely going to retire, and that's going to be money that's going to end, dead money that's going to end up on the cap. What do the Saints do from here moving into the future? Because I don't think their window is by any means closed, but this is certainly going to have to look like a different team next year.
Yeah, and we talked to Mickey Loomis about that today, and he didn't shed a whole lot of light because he doesn't know exactly what the cap number is going to be. But we certainly know the Saints are going to be way over it. The projections are around $100 million, $100 to $90 million. Mm-hmm. So they're going to have to do some Mickey math, as they always do, and try to restructure some deals. There's going to be some players that probably are going to have to be released that play key roles. And we know no matter what, they're going to be probably committed to it looks like $27 million to the quarterback position, even without Drew Brees on the roster, because of the money you talked about, the dead cap that's going to come forward. They've got $16 million allocated to Taysom Hill. So I think, some of the speculation about the Saints potentially being a trade partner for Matthew Stafford or Deshaun Watson, I think is pretty idle speculation because I just don't. Yes, it can be done. You can always make it work on the cap, but at what cost to the other positions on the roster? Because anytime you're adding a player of that magnitude, salary cap wise, and you're already $100 million over, you're going to have to do some heavy duty trimming at other positions to make it work. And that's why I don't think it's really realistic to think the Saints would be in that market. It could happen. You never say never. But I think more than likely Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston is going to be the quarterback of this team next year.
Well, we know that Sean started Taysom when Drew was down, and I know a lot of people that soured on Taysom a little bit, Saints fans especially. I thought he looked just fine. I thought he looked like a very capable starting quarterback in the NFL. Yes, I think sometimes Sean's play calling hamstrung him a little bit, especially in the games where, like the Broncos game, they knew they were going to win. Broncos couldn't do anything offensively, so they just scaled everything down and just ran it a bunch. There was the first half after that where he kind of didn't do much, and then the second half, I think it was the Eagles, second half they let him go, and he really played a lot better. If you had to put money on it, do you think Sean Payton believes that long-term Taysom Hill is his guy?
I think he believes in him, and I think he also believes in Jameis Winston. I think he's going to let them compete for it. I really do. Now, how that's going to work, salary-wise, how do they get Jameis Winston back, given some of the limitations they have in the salary cap? Do they have an incentive-laden deal for Winston? I mean, he's going to have a market in free agency. There's no doubt about it. Does he see an opportunity in New Orleans to win that job? I think there's so many unanswered questions there, but I have no doubt that Sean Payton is confident in Taysom Hill. I know that for a fact, but I also think he'd like to see Jameis Winston compete. And I don't think he's going to hand the job to either one of them. I think he wants to see competition for that position, but he has confidence that the rest of this roster is strong enough that those guys are good enough at the position that this team can still challenge. I think their days of being a Super Bowl contender are over. I really believe that, but this team can still, I think, be a playoff team and be very successful with the talent they have on the roster, no matter who's at quarterback.
Yeah, talking to Jeff Duncan from The Athletic. Look, why wouldn't Jameis have a free agency? He was 1 for 1 for 50-something yards and a touchdown in the playoffs, so it makes sense he would have a market, right? The guy's super efficient, throws nothing but touchdowns.
Well, and here's the other thing. I mean, it's just such a crazy year with what we've just talked about, the fact that Matthew Stafford might be available in a trade, same with Deshaun Watson. Who knows what's going on with Dak Prescott's situation in Dallas? There's just so much uncertainty at the quarterback position, whereas a year ago there wasn't nearly this much volatility, this much star power potentially available, that a guy like Jameis Winston basically had to sign a 1-year bargain basement deal, and the same thing happened with Cam Newton. Now you've got legitimate starting quarterbacks, some of them in their primes, that might be available. So it's just a totally different quarterback market this year.
If you had to guess, and I know all of this is speculation at this point, we know a big-name player is going to have to either be moved or cut because of money issues. Do you have a concept on who you think might be the likely candidates?
Well, there's a lot of players I think that they're going to move on from. I mean, and I'm just speculating. I don't have any inside information.
We all are.
Looking at, say a player like Trey Hendrickson. I think he's going to be hard to get back because he earned a huge contract this year. The Saints have no real. They could maybe transition tag him or franchise tag him, but that's going to be a pretty exorbitant number. I think it's going to be hard to re-sign him. Marcus Williams, I don't know the feeling in the building on Marcus Williams. He has earned a major contract. Do they really feel motivated to bring him in back at free safety? I don't think Sheldon Rankins will be back. I think they've got enough depth with young players like Malcolm Roach and Shai Tuttle at defensive tackle that they can roll with those guys in addition to David Onyemata. I'll be surprised if Jared Cook is back. He's under contract. He seems like a potential cap casualty because you've got a cheaper backup groomed to replace him in Adam Troutman.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of names where you see guys already being groomed to replace them. Nick Easton's a good example. He's due $6 million. You got a first-round draft pick in Cesar Ruiz, who started a lot this past year. It's easy to move on from Nick Easton and save that cap money. So those are some players. I think Emmanuel Sanders is an interesting topic. Do they feel comfortable with some of these young players like Marquez Callaway and Duron Johnson and, you mentioned Deontay Harris. Can they move on from Emmanuel Sanders? Was he a one and done here? Those are the hard decisions that Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton are going to have to make here to get under the cap and keep this team competitive going forward.
Talking to Jeff Duncan from The Athletic as we kind of wrap up the Saints season and start looking forward. Jeff, does that then make this upcoming draft really, really important that, hey, you need to be able to hit on a couple of guys that are going to be able to come in and play immediately, even if they're not starting, at least come in and provide a little bit of depth, because you are looking at some guys that are going to have to go elsewhere. Does this draft become that much more important?
Well, I think you can't miss. There's no doubt. What you need now, because you've got kind of a top-heavy roster with some big-ticket players, like Ryan Ramchek's probably going to get extended here, multi-year lucrative deal. Marshawn Lattimore. They've already have Mike Thomas and Alvin Kamara with big deals. Cam Jordan's still on a big deal. You have to have sort of cheap labor, and that comes through the draft. Players, they don't necessarily have to come in and start. I think what you look at is last year's draft class, where Adam Troutman, Cesar Ruiz came in. I mean, 2 years ago, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, they play a key role. They may not necessarily have to be a star, but they have to play key roles and be contributors. And with Jeff Ireland and that scouting staff, even losing Terry Fontenot to the Falcons, I think as long as you've got Jeff Ireland around, you have to feel confident they're going to hit more often than they miss in the draft.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the Saints get draft capital back for Fontenot, correct?
Yes, Loomis confirmed that today. They'll get a third-rounder and another third-rounder in 22, I'm sorry.
Yeah, very nice. All right, let's switch gears a little bit, and let's talk about why you're in our neck of the woods and talking to John Ware, one of the great personalities and terrific head coaches here in this area. Springhill, Cotton Valley, you're all up in that neck of the woods. What do you got going on, Jeff?
Hey, Patrick, I'm staring at the Chickadilly right now outside of Northwestern High School football stadium.
Yeah.
I'm going to grab lunch as soon as I get done here. And I'm having a blast up here. It's a great Louisiana story. I mean, Webster Parish has two former high school stars, Devon White, of course, from North Webster, and L'Jarius Sneed from Minden, going against each other. I don't need to tell your listeners. They know that story, but I think it's a great community story to have two players that used to go against each other. They didn't go against each other in the football field because L'Jarius Sneed was injured the year that they played each other, but They did compete in basketball. They competed against each other at Louisiana Tech and LSU, and obviously now at the next level. And one of them is going to get a Super Bowl ring. It's just a great, I think, story and a great inspiration for kids and the youth of this area that they can, if they put in the work and do it right, they can actually get on the greatest stage that there is in professional sports, like the Super Bowl in a week from Sunday.
I would imagine we'll see that in The Athletic here before too long.
Yeah, it should be next week. I want to be able to talk to Devon White and L'Jarius Sneed about that. So we don't get access to them until next week.
Right.
So it'll probably be about midweek next week on The Athletic, but it's fun for me to get up and do these kind of hometown stories. It's really what I enjoy doing the most in my line of work. So it's fun to get back up to North Louisiana and spend some time here.
And you hit crawfish hole number 2, I understand?
Yes, last night. And I think I'm going to head to Gilliam tonight.
Gilliam, yeah.
To Main Street restaurant. And I hear there's a mean chicken fried steak there, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, Gilliam's got some sneaky good food for being such a tiny town, kind of seemingly out in the middle of nowhere. You got to talk to John Ware.
You know this, Patrick.
Yeah.
Well, you know this. The football passion up here is unrivaled. I mean, it's just amazing that these communities, Friday night lights to the core, and there's got to be just a great sense of pride to have two, hometown boys done good, if you will. Both of them doing it the right way, and getting a chance to do it on the biggest stage. There is no bigger stage in sports than the Super Bowl. I mean, there's going to be millions of eyes on that game, and to think the two from this same parish are there playing is just a remarkable story. It doesn't happen very often. It's very rare.
No, and it's an interesting story in that Devon White was a running back and a linebacker, and obviously offensive guys get more recognition than defensive guys a lot. So when he was here, I always thought, oh, he's going to LSU. He's going to be a great running back. He's the next Leonard Fournette at LSU. And it turns out they move him to linebacker, and I'm like, well, that's silly. Like, he was a good linebacker in high school, but he put up eye-popping numbers as a running back. And that just goes to show you that I'm a dummy and don't need to be coaching football. But that's a great story about how, hey, play whatever you can, cross-train, get out there, play basketball, all of those things, and that leads you to be a great developed athlete like Devon White is. Yeah,
and it's really a testament to just Louisiana, right? The amount of athletes that are produced. Guys like, Jerry Sneed's a good example. He played mostly receiver his senior year at Minden and kind of slipped through the cracks recruiting-wise, ends up at Louisiana Tech, and they move him around from safety to corner, and he is just blown up this year. I mean, he's had as good a rookie season as any cornerback in the league. And I see it year after year in Louisiana with these athletes. You mentioned Devon White playing both ways. I remember seeing Leonard Fournette at St. Aug, and he was a hell of a linebacker early in his career. Very similarly built to Devon White.
Yeah.
He chose to play running back, but I guarantee if he'd have stuck at linebacker, he would be in the NFL playing linebacker. Same thing with Landon Collins. He was a great running back. Goes to Alabama, goes to the defensive side of the ball. We're blessed here with the football talent and the athleticism. And you all see it up here a lot with, Dak Prescott and all the other players that come out of this area. It's really, really unique, and we're fortunate to be able to see these great athletes come through and then do it the right way and be proud of their communities, coming back and giving back to their respective communities. It's pretty special.
And you got to sit down and chat with one of our great personalities in this area, John Ware, the head coach at North Webster. That's a fun cat to hang out with, Jeff.
Yeah, he was great, and he talked a lot about that sense of pride and how proud they are of Devon White. The community being behind him and recognizing that this can have an impact. I mean, when you have a player like this come through, it can impact an entire generation of kids. They can see, hey, I can do that too if I put in the work. I may not be as special an athlete. I may not make it to the NFL level, but I can do something and become something. And I think that's what's important here. Not everyone is going to come through with Devon White's athleticism. I mean, he's a rare, athlete. But you can do something and be productive, whatever line of work you go into. And I think that's the lesson here when players like this come through and they get on that big stage. You can see that, hey, he's no different than me. I came out of the same general community, and, I can do that too in whatever field or endeavor I choose.
Cotton Valley stand up, right? There you go. That's what it's all about. Well, Jeff, obviously we look forward to that coming up next week. I know it'll be great. We'll obviously pump it up whenever you get it sent out. As I tell everyone all the time, go get a subscription to The Athletic. It's not expensive, and you get so much quality writing and work done, podcasts and the like. It is well worth your time and effort to go subscribe to The Athletic. Jeff, have a great time up here, man. Get all the food you can, enjoy the chickadilly, and enjoy Gillum. Have a good time, brother.
Thank you, Patrick. I really appreciate the time, brother. We'll talk soon, okay?
All right. Jeff Duncan from The Athletic in New Orleans.